Superintendent, Board of Education hereby accepts the minutes of the August 23rd, 2017 regular meeting as submitted.
Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Student recognition. Some exciting achievements tonight.
Yes, we have 3 great achievements. Hopefully they're all here. I'm not quite sure, but we have Frank LaBianca.
One of them?
Correct.
Thank you, Gordon.
No, you get the-
Thank you. No more. You don't have to say
You
anymore.
get to hold them. You're the keeper of said certificates. I'd like to thank Jerry Thaler for also coming out tonight, the teacher with these great kids. So, Jerry and Frank, would you like to explain a little bit about the contest and the significance?
I'm very happy Jerry's here, Mrs. Allen's here. But I want to start with a little background of why we are here. And this story starts approximately 15 years ago when Jerry and I came into the district together in 2001. She was an English teacher. I was a social studies teacher and dean. I became the humanities director. And after the first year, Jerry had in, she came up to me and she said, Frank, I really want to introduce this little novella. It's about a dystopian society where there's no individual, and I went, Anthem. And she went, yes, you know it? And I said, yes, because my father came home when I was in 8th grade. He put the book on my desk and said, you need to read this. And I read it, and it was wonderful. So when she brought it to me that she wanted to do it, we had the books in within a month. And then the following year, she said, I want to enter the kids into the Enrand writing contest. Now, this isn't the first year we've had winners in this contest. We've had them almost every year.
Ever since I've been teaching honors.
So this is just really, this is the highest we've gotten in regards to having some really high winners, and I want to call them up and be recognized. Just so you know, over 13,000 kids around the world entered this contest. And they basically write an essay either agreeing or disagreeing with the position that the Enron Institute puts out, and then they work on it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, they give them 3 topics. The
Yeah.
students have to choose 3 topics. And their perspective doesn't matter. It doesn't have to agree with the philosophies of Ayn Rand. They're judging, as I wrote to Mr. Grable, on the ability for the students to articulate clearly, logically, and thoroughly their ideas.
So with that said, I'm going to announce 2 gentlemen to come up first. I'm going to have Denver D'Agostino come up. He was a semifinalist. Denver, come on up.
Can I say a little something about
Yeah,
Denver?
absolutely.
Stay here. Okay. All right. If I have to be nervous, you have to be nervous too. I jotted, because I would talk forever, especially about the class that these 2 were in. I'd like you to know that Denver is one of those out-of-the-box thinkers. He sees things from many angles at the same time. He uses this talent to argue from a perspective that some people would never even consider. So I think it's likely that he was able to write a convincing argument because an argument that placed him in the top 1% of all entrants, being someone who can see things that other people can't seem to see, take the position and argue it thoroughly. I hope you're going to join the Model UN. Yeah, okay. Because those are the skills that they look for at the Model UN. Anyhow, as you heard, Denver achieved the status of semifinalist, which is in the top 1% of the international students who entered the contest. And I think that was fabulous.
We have a finalist, Mario Zeri, come up.
Okay. All right. I could probably talk about Mario all day, because I do to my friends and family. I think that Mario is one of the most, if not the most hardworking student to ever walk the halls of Mount Sinai High School. He does the work until he knows he can't do it any better. It's not, is this good enough? But have I reached the pinnacle of what I can do? And it shows in his work. I think it's this dedication and drive that makes him a successful athlete, scholar, and a finalist. So you know that 1%? We're moving even higher up into the like 0.05, don't get me math, 0.5%, okay? And so I can't imagine what you're going to accomplish in the next 3 years, but I hope I'm around to see it. Thank you.
And then Jackie Black, please come up. Jackie, I was going to say this, and then I'm going to step aside, and I had the honor of telling her she was going to be here tonight. Jackie was 3rd place overall. So out of the 13,000 applicants in the world, 3rd place overall. Couldn't be more proud of her. And the gentleman sitting there too, so congratulations, Jackie.
Okay, I apologize for having my phone out. If my students who are here are, probably want to yell at me because I was never allowed this, but my notes written in 14-point font are not here. All right, so here's when I sat down to think about what I'd say about Jackie. Jackie's now a sophomore, but wrote her essay in March of last year when she was a freshman. Jackie's so eager to learn from her peers as well as her teacher that she often chooses not to offer her opinions, but instead listens to what everyone else has to say. I was a bit concerned that she was hiding her light under a bushel. Well, her light shone during the contest when she worked diligently every minute of every period devoted to developing, that's poorly written, Mrs. Dallin, the essay for the contest. I want to say she was borderline beatific. The happiness that I saw on her face while she was working, I was wondering what she was thinking about. But apparently, she wrote a little bit about our experience with the contest, and she seemed to be having the time of her life. I've never seen her happier in class. Her end-of-the-year letter, which I gave back to her today, which they used to talk about their feelings regarding the different tasks and projects, explicitly cited the essay contest as a highlight of the year for her. In this letter, she spoke of how hard she worked on the essay and how much she learned about writing by completing the completing steps. She said she was truly proud of the product, prouder than she'd ever been of any of her earlier writing. So she's obviously not only a good writer, but a good judge of writing because she knew it was a winner when she wrote it. Okay, so she produced this letter in June, over a month before she found out about her success. As a 3rd place winner, she demonstrated herself to be among the elite student writers, not only in this country, but on the international stage of students. I just want you to know all 3 of the students won some money, which is never something, it's better than a sharp stick in the eye, I always think. But in addition, not only do they get this little check that they can put in their account and do whatever they like with, but they also now can put this on their resume, on their college resume. They're all great students. We have a lot of great students, great athletes, other great accomplishments. But these 3 students can put something on their resume that, maybe one other person on Long Island can put on a resume. So I'm hoping that it helps them have that little competitive edge when they make their college applications. And thank you for listening to me.
Jerry, before you leave, I think it's important for the board to recognize Jerry Thalen for the excellence she presents to this community. I've had the pleasure, my children have all had her. They all come into her class worried because she holds them at a standard that is extraordinary. Not that they can't do it. They've never been pushed that far. And they come out with a love of literature. It comes from the heart. I've seen it with my own children. My father, who was a teacher, used to call it, there are teachers who are here because they have a call. You're one of them. Thank you for your...
I certainly agree with what Bob just said, Jerry, and I think evidence is the fact that you're here this evening. You know, we're going to have Frank present. Not that all you presented, Frank. But Jerry's so proud of these 3 students that she wanted to be here herself to speak about them because no one could do it better. So
Thank you.
we appreciate it, Jerry. Thank you so much, and thank you, Frank. One more round of applause for these 3 great students.
Thank you, Mrs. Thalen, Mr. LaBianca, and congratulations to everybody. Great job. Yep.
Okay, behind me,
You're welcome to stay and see government work in action if you like.
I think the dad's already at the door. Congratulations to all of you again. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Following up on what Mr. Riggio just said. If you look behind me about setting the direction for the district, this summer the board worked very hard on a number of projects. According to our Mount Sinai District policy, the board can change its goals every year or every 2 years. So with that in mind, when the board is about to undertake to create the domains of their goals as a board, and my own goals as superintendent stem from those goals. But in addition, we had some other challenges. Revisit a mission statement that's 20 years old. Time goes fast. That was written in 1997. And that was redone, and I thank the board members for their effort in that. And then the vision statement, the overall vision statement for a district, simply phrased. The mission is how you get there. And then the core beliefs of the district. We had a number of them last year, perhaps too many, and I think the board hit it on the head, bringing that number down to describe how we feel as a district, what we really believe. And of course, all this is determined by where we want to go, the culture of the district. Are we changing? And yes, we are. The needs of our students, do they change all the time? Absolutely. So there's a lot to consider when we set our goals every year or every 2 years and what we believe as a board. So tonight, I'm happy that the board members will join me in presenting for the first time here at a public meeting, although I did share it with teachers on the opening day on August 30th to put it out to the staff. But the first time in public and on our live streaming about our goals, mission statement, vision, and core beliefs. Lynn, would you start, please?
Sure. So as Gordon said, we worked very hard this summer trying to incorporate our goals with our mission statement and realized that we still needed that vision statement, where we wanted to be, what we were aspiring to become. So we brainstormed and came up with some ideas. We just wanted a simple 1 or 2-liners just so everybody could say, that's what we want to do. That's where Mount Sinai wants to be. So, it's behind us. So this is what we created. The Mount Sinai School District will be an exemplary 21st century learning community. Our students will become lifelong learners, prepared and ready to thrive in the global community as responsible, productive, and engaged citizens. So that's our vision. That's where we hope to be. And then we revisited the mission statement, which last year at this very same meeting I read aloud because I thought it was a great way to start the school year. So in looking at it, it had great spots to it, but we wanted to bring it into the 21st century. So again, we brainstormed, we left some in, we took some out, and we came up with the mission statement, which is kind of the wind that brings us to this harbor of our vision. So here we go. Our mission is to provide all students with an excellent academic environment that will ensure all learners reach their highest potential. Our learning community will provide an academic environment in which each student will develop curiosity, engage in problem-solving strategies, and employ critical thinking skills. Our goal is to enable each learner to acquire 21st century skills and knowledge, develop strong work habits, and a healthy lifestyle, become independent thinkers, gain an appreciation of the arts and a proficiency in technology. Our teachers shall collaborate with each other and professionally develop to meet the challenges of an academically evolving and challenging environment. We will promote a climate that fosters tolerance, respect, integrity, and which leads students on a path to become lifelong learners and good citizens. So that is our mission. And now we have our core belief section, which is, we're at the mission, but this is what we really believe in, and this is what drives us to have a mission and a vision. So Lynn Jordan is going to read those for us. Thank you.
Okay, is it working? Yeah. One of the things about the core beliefs was that we wanted to incorporate some of the sentiment that we get from our community and some of the things that we have learned over the years the community felt was important. Our students are our community's most valuable asset, which certainly, as parents, I'm sure you agree. The school district is a reflection of its community, and the community is a reflection of the high standards of the district. Both must work together to ensure quality education for all. It's a team. If one part of the team isn't working, it doesn't happen real well. So we need you as much as we think you need us. The educational program is based on a culture of respect, trust, professionalism, and strong leadership. Excellence in learning is directly related to excellence in teaching. All adults should share the vision, invest in its attainment, align their work, and work collaboratively with colleagues, families, and the community. Once again, we're bringing everyone into this process. We want you to feel comfortable participating in this process because we need you. All students should have their learning needs accommodated by differentiated instruction and other accommodations as needed or prescribed. Everybody learns at a different pace, in a different way, and they deserve the opportunity to be taught so that they can reach their best achievement. It is our expectation that all who enter the district properties and buildings will be highly respectful of the faculty, staff, and facilities. In turn, they will be treated respectfully. There we are.
Thank you, Lynn. So how are we going to get there? So we came up with some areas of concern for this year. The board did. We established some goals, and from those goals, we handed Gordon some goals for himself, which we're not going to go into. But right now, each board member is going to describe one particular goal that we wrote for this year. Carrie?
Sure. The first goal we came up with was educational excellence, and when we were trying to describe this goal, one of the things we thought about was that it's not only just the students who are at the top of the class who gets hundreds on tests every week, but that no matter what level learner they are, they have an opportunity to show growth and to shine in some capacity. So this is our goal for educational excellence. To provide an engaging and high standards learning environment that meets students' needs and provides scholastic opportunities for all students to meet their individual levels of excellence.
Thank you, Karen. Fiscal responsibility, Pete?
The goal I'm going to read is fiscal responsibility, demonstrate an understanding and application of fiscal responsibility, which recognizes the tax burden of our community and maintains the district's long-term financial health while meeting our district's priorities. Just to add, I would encourage all of our community members to be engaged in this process. In the budget material that was presented last year, a 5-year plan was in that budget. 30 months from now, we're going to be in financial distress. We need the community to be engaged with the board to help us through this process in the future. People in the community need to have an understanding of what's going on and what challenges we face going forward.
Thank you, Pete. Next up is leadership. Bob?
Our words and our goals without action are hollow. That is more important in the leadership. Leadership is rarely given by title or by words. It comes from actions, actions from our administrators, our teachers, and yes, our students, as well as the board. Facilitate a district-wide culture that fosters growth, creativity, and an individual responsibility to meet the district's vision of an exemplary educational community.
Thank you, Bob. Communication, Mike?
Sure, communication. To provide timely information to our parents, students, and community at large in a consistent, reliable manner regarding opportunities, achievements, and events at all levels. And obviously, all of the goals we're speaking about, very important. Communication obviously being one of them, so that parents, community members, you know what's happening with our district. You just said it, communication, you know about what's happening fiscally, you know what's happening education-wise, as Kerry explained. So communication is a big thing, also works both ways, communications from you to us, and back and forth.
Thanks, Mike. And the last one is technology. Ed?
To be a 21st century educational community, we have to implement good technology. So our goal here is to implement the strategic planning to utilize technology resources to meet the highest level of student achievement and to foster that development among students through technology.
You, Ed? We have that Smart Schools Bond Act coming up, so we'll hopefully get an influx of state dollars to help us with that particular goal. So that's it, my friends. We worked hard. We hope you can understand the need for these and will give us your input on any of these that you may have a question about or that you particularly like. That would be great. So now we come to the portion of our program where you may ask a question or a concern having to do with the agenda. We're going to ask you to come up to the mic. Oh, wait, what? I was doing that at the end, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Come on, committee. Sorry.
Over the past several years, a number of the administrators have been highlighting and inventorying a number of needs in campus here, whether it's on the athletic fields, whether it's in the buildings, infrastructure issues, the roof, etc. That list of proposed projects or asks have been consolidated for review by the board. Back in the spring, the board authorized the creation of the Bond Advisory Committee, and we had solicited participation by the community, and there are 10 at-large members representing a variety of interests across the community. Over the summer, after we kicked off the meeting and the group, we took tours of all the buildings and campus to see details and to see firsthand what a lot of these project asks are. There's a lot of need, there's a lot of money that could be allocated to do everything, but with the notion of fiscal responsibility, we need to cut that list down to see to something that is reasonable for the community to consider. We've started culling that list down through the first of a series of workshops and working sessions, and we expect to be able to conduct that culling down to be able to present to the board, hopefully in October, no later than November, for the board to consider.
Can you just so I have a better understanding of the process, October, November, the board will be presented with the findings of the committee
Right.
to your
We
approval.
hope to be able to get it done by, in time so that the board could consider it for the October public session. Worst case would be to push that back to November because there are a lot of projects. It's sort of like with the house. I mean, if we had to do this for my house, there's an unending list of projects, both needs, like-to-haves, and wants that are just unaffordable. And that's similar to the process that we're taking. We have this laundry list of projects, and we're going through them one by one to see what is realistic and reasonable. And we've started that discussion, and we hope to have all the working sessions where we've gotten it down to the final list for board consideration with a target of the October public session, but worst case, by November public session.
Okay, just, I know that you, Pete, Lynn, thank you guys for chairing this and being on this committee. It worked very hard. We have 10 other members from the community at large. What would be the steps after that? Let's say that it works out, the board says this looks good, we're approving it. What would be the next steps going forward?
Once it's adopted or rejected by the board can either accept it in its entirety, in part, or not at all. So once the board has that decision, the board in its entirety, if a package is adopted, the next step would be to bring it to the community through what I refer to as road shows, speaking with, bringing in the administrators, the architect, to describe and discuss in detail what these projects entail, the cost or the estimated cost of these projects. Once we go through a series, just like we did with full day kindergarten, a series of public sessions and public discussion, we would look to present it as a bond referendum for vote sometime possibly in January or February. Once that's done, assuming it's adopted in whatever form, we would have to take that to the state for state review. That right now is estimated to take about 10 months. So if we adopted it, if the public adopted it on a happy path in February, it may take the state through the end of 2018 to review the projects and provide comments and hopefully approval. Once that's done, we would plan to issue RFPs for some of the projects and then start to line up the contractors. On this path, it's unlikely, even in the best case scenario, that any construction would start before the summer of 2019.
May I just, one of the interesting things about the committee is that we are committed to looking at these various projects for the long term. None of them are instant fixes. They are all for, if you want to put a new roof on, you want to put a roof on that's going to last a good long time, so you get a high-rated roof. And the same thing is with all the rest of the things. We're trying to bring the buildings, in some areas it's just building, up to the quality that they need to survive in a good condition for many, many, many years. And of course, some of the changes that we're looking at have to do with curriculum. Curriculum has changed, and therefore sometimes the facilities that you need in which to teach that curriculum have to change. So this is a very forward-looking committee. It was very exciting last night to listen to everyone's ideas and interests and concerns, and it's a good group.
To Lynn's point, this is the first time that the district has been able to take a very long-term, forward-thinking capital plan to consider. We're looking not 5 years out, not 10 years out. We're looking at 25 years out in terms of what our district and the changing demographics, the ebbs and flows of the population, what we are likely to need, what we can forecast as far as possible to need 20, 25 years out, not 5 years out.
Any other comments? Thank you, Pete and Lynn, and community members on this committee for doing all you have done so far. We really appreciate it. So now we have a question and answer period, 15 minutes. Just as a reminder, we are being videotaped. So thank you, Mr. Jockers. So if you could come up to the mic, that would help the videotaping, because sometimes the questions aren't easy to hear on the tape. So, questions on the agenda?
See, that was
I see the
tactical
smile. I'm
strategic.
waiting.
Mike is intimidating.
No, I got stuff for later.
You have something for later? I can't wait. skip this part then and move on to the business portion with personnel. Carrie?
Sure. Resignations, 1, Christina Coburn, registered nurse, part-time. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Christina Coburn, registered nurse, effective September 1st, 2017. 2, like you go?
No, we have to,
Oh, vote.
second.
We have to vote, sorry.
I'll second.
Thanks, Mike. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Ed, 2.
Danielle Haymarth, School District Aide. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Danielle Haymarth, School District Aide, effective September 1st, 2017.
Second. Thank you, Lynn. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mike, number 3.
Sure. Kendra Dematsine, Kendra. Resolved upon the recommendation of superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Kendra Dematsine, School District Aide, effective September 1, 2017.
Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Bob, number 1, appointments.
Amend compensation step. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby amends the following appointment for Brandon Loomis, physical education, appointment date August 29, 2017, compensation step A, BA, .8 position, previously listed as an MA, certification status initial.
Second. Thank you, Lynn. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Non-instructional appointments, Lynn? Perfect.
Part-time registered nurse. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Lisa Bracken, appointment date September 5th, 2017, registered nurse, part-time, step 1.6. Some years ago, we realized that our children with very difficult medical needs are increasing. And in order for the nurse to be able to get out of her office and actually have lunch, we felt that we needed another nurse who would be able to cover that office. And so this nurse goes from building to building to cover the office while the nurse has lunch. She has been a substitute nurse for us for quite a while. And then she also helps out when testing is done and things like that. But she's highly competent, and we're very pleased to have her take this position.
Thank you, Lynn. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Substitute aide, Pete?
Substitute aide. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Kendra Demonstein, sorry, Kendra, I apologize. Mike, I wish you'd help me out there. Appointment date September 13th, 2017. Substitute aide, former aide. Compensation $10 an hour.
Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Other appointments, spring coaches, Carrie?
Sure. Spring coaches. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointments as listed.
I second that.
Thank you, Pete. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right, we're up to middle school clubs advisors. Ed?
Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby authorizes the following middle school co-curricular clubs and appoints the persons listed below as advisors for the 2017-18 school year as listed.
Thank you, Ed. Mike? Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mike, Dean of Students.
Sure. Dean of Students, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointments. Harold Drum and Matthew Armstrong, Dean of Students, 2 periods per day. The compensation for each is $5,063.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Bob. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Special ed, Bob?
Committee on Special Education resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent. The Board of Education has no objections to the following special education recommendations and approves the authorization for funds to implement the special education programs and services consistent with such as listed.
Second. Thank you, Lynn. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Okay. Lynn, obsolete equipment?
Action items business. Obsolete equipment. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby declares the following items as obsolete and further authorizes disposal as listed below.
Thank you, Lynn.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Pete, rings. Perfect.
The championship rings resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent. The Board of Education hereby acknowledges the following organizations, persons, for the purchase of championship rings from Jostens for the girls varsity lacrosse team. The Mount Sinai Teachers Association, $500. Thank you to them. An anonymous donor, $1,000. Thank you to the anonymous donor. And Mount Sinai Lacrosse, $1,700.
Pete?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments? Thank you to the organizations and persons who have contributed so generously to our girls' team. They must need like a bulldozer now, right? For all those rings? 4.
5.
Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Carrie's school tax levy?
Sure, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby establishes the 2017-18 school district tax levy in an amount of $39,350,460.
I second that.
Thank you, Pete. Any comments?
Some questions. Linda, could you give us the difference between the estimate from last year and the actual levy? And what's the per 100 rate?
Well, the rate is $256.04 per 100, and the difference, the difference from last year's to this year's is it's about $4 per 100.
And
But what we estimated was only a few dollars because only the assessment went down $6,000. So it really wasn't much.
And the assessment means that the tax base that is out there in the community is reduced, is that correct?
Yes.
And that was your estimate was,
We didn't.
I calculated, was less than $4, is that correct?
Yes.
Which is always extraordinary, by the way. We really think she has some sort of crystal ball. But what is important to recognize, and why I asked the question, but the tax base itself is reduced by tax grievances, and that comes and goes as sales of homes changes the tax basis. Some of you may or may not have taken the advantage of a grievance, either going to the tax assessor's window or actually going through a SCAR. But that changes the value or the amount of available tax assessed property that then the tax is applied to. We don't set that, that's what's out there. But what is important to recognize is regardless of what that is, we then split that amount and accommodate that. In this instance, an additional $4. If you wanted to go home and look at your tax bill, if you have no life, like I do, you look at the tax bill and your $256 multiplies out by your assessed value, whatever that is. We use an average of $3,300, $3,500, and multiply it out, but that becomes what the actual cost is. If you've been through the budget process before, we do this as an estimate and see how disjointed the process is, that this occurs all the way now. This whole time period, we've been working off a TAN, a tax anticipation note, because the tax levy hasn't been set, so we have to take out a loan to pay our bills. And that means you have to pay the interest on that loan because the system is not set up correctly. And now we set the tax rate. It's close, but it's not necessarily equal, and it's nothing we can do to define the assessed value of homes and what may or may not be grievances or exceptions or exemptions that you may get.
Thank you, Bob. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Ed, public library tax?
Public library tax levy. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby establishes the 2017-18 public library tax levy in the amount of $1,833,069.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Mike, amend appointment?
Sure, amend appointment of purchasing agents. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby appoints the superintendent of schools, Gordon Brosdale, and/or the assistant superintendent for business, Linda Jensen, as purchasing agents for the fiscal year 2017-2018.
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Bob, the impartial hearing office?
Resolved, the Board of Education hereby appoints Tina Millman Esquire as the impartial hearing officer for case number 506436 with an effective date of September 1st, 2017.
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. So now, if you have any questions on any particular issue relating to the school, please come forward, use the microphone, and we'll try and answer them.
Since Monica doesn't want to go first. Hello. Can you guys discuss what the enrollment is for 2017-2018 district-wide, and particularly any impact on unaccompanied minors and other students that have been placed in our district by the federal government?
I don't know if I can discuss that right now in public about the enrollment. I'll just tell you, you're talking like what would the enrollment be this summer? Students coming into the district, Brad?
Yes.
Okay. We had quite a bit on some days, as I mentioned, at the Civic. It was a white sale at Macy's. Some families of 5 even coming in. And we have found that this, for the district, this has been a very diverse summer for registration. And like many or all districts are experiencing, our district is changing, and we are obtaining a diverse population in our building, which creates some needs. Fortunately, a lot of these children do speak English, and which is great because they don't need services. On the occasion, you might have one or so that need services, and we do the best to accommodate that student within the guided laws. But it has been a diverse summer, and particularly August. So I hope that helps somewhat.
So if you call the DO tomorrow, I'm sure they could give you the enrollment figures. Is that just grade by grade? Is what you're looking for?
No, I was looking just for more of the total impact of, has enrollment gone up, has it gone down, and kind of what our costs are going to be.
Gary, I think I can answer that too. That we did not have, sometimes we hold our breath over the summer. If we really get a rush, well, we have to hire more teachers. We experienced that 2 years ago. Especially the year we went full day K, expecting 120 students, and we had 166. As a result of that, you have to hire a teacher. Then at the same time, we watch the enrollment daily, and the 3rd grade group had, one teacher was scheduled to do AIS work, we had to pull him back out of the classroom, put him back in the third grade classroom. And our numbers kind of jump all over. Our 8th grade group is our largest at present at about 212, yet our kindergarten group this year is 122. You'll have a class going through at 119. We are predicting that after that 8th grade group exits the high school, we will no longer see a 200 class, which seems to be the trend, not just here. We know how small Port Jeff is, but I had mentioned to the board, I was shocked, speaking to the superintendent in Shaw and Wading River, where Carrie's employed, to find, I think they're the same or bigger than us. And I even quote the number 2,400 in our district, and actually it's 2,259. But Shaw and Wading River, I thought was a very large district, then I found it was 2,100 students, smaller than us. So it's surprising. Miller Place, the enrollment's also going down. So it seems to be a trend. I'm meeting with superintendents tomorrow in Hauppauge, and I'm sure that's going to be part of the conversation about declining enrollment. Now, I mentioned that due to questions at the Civic Association one day, what does that mean when the enrollment goes down? Is it good and bad? It's good and bad. Because budget-wise, if you don't need that many staff, it's kind of a positive thing. We don't want to lose any programs. We want to maintain them, and you want full classes and what you're paying for. You want to get the most bang for your buck out of that class and the teacher. But what will happen is, what I predict down the road, will get smaller, and you'll have a reduced staff down the road. And that's occurring everywhere. It's not a threat, it's just a fact when less students appear at the door. And where it could add is if you get the enrollment becomes more and more diverse as my neighbors, because when I was looking at August enrollment rates, make sure we didn't have to hire, and seeing who was coming into the district, what was going on, I called a few and they're experiencing the exact same thing. But fortunately, we didn't have to have an ESL program. We have that few kids right now. So should that expand, you become more diverse, you will have to have a full-fledged ESL program, which will be a cost add. So that's how numbers affect you there, or don't affect you. But we're kind of planning, and this goes on with Ed's bond committee, with accommodating student. We had one person last week address the 5th grade issue and possibly exploring bringing them back. A lot of us like that idea, especially when I observe over there and see them, but you would need 6 or 7 classrooms to do that. Currently, we have 1 classroom available in the elementary school. So should that happen, that would be far into the future. It would require a reduced number of students enrolled in the district and at least 6 classrooms, and we're far away, 5 away from that target. Did any of that rambling help you with the numbers? It's a fair thing to even check with me, and I'm hopefully going to see you more at your meetings where you run the Civic Association. So your people, there's a packed room the other night, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. A number of people who there are here probably want to torment me back for the meeting. But it was a good meeting, and they were very interested in what was going on in the schools. So I'm going to make a point to attend when I can. And enrollment was, I think, 2 questions dealt with enrollment that night. So they're interested, and we watch them all the time.
And as you know, I've lived on Long Island all my life, and it's, ebbs and flows. It's a cyclical thing. I think when I first started teaching, I was in Huntington, and they were closing schools because the population was just tanking. And then, the 80s came along, and then more people came in. So I think we're at that low point right now. Will it go up again? I don't know, but it's been in different zones over the past 40 years.
I think that's why, Brian, we have to look at strategically the finances and where we're headed, because we can't work year to year. We have at one end, the high school is, most of those classes are pretty close to or just over 200. The last of the bubble is 8th grade. You're talking about between 8th grade and kindergarten, 80 students. That's huge. That's a huge difference. I pay attention to the real estate market, what's going on in terms of the homes. You don't see a lot of new developments of single-family homes being built in our community. You see more of a planned community may be brought in. Those are things to look at in terms of what impact that will have, and how we will be able to accommodate that with our budget constraints, and with one of our goals being to look at our fiscal responsibilities within and understanding the tax burden to the community.
Is there, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry, Lynn.
May I?
Yes.
Our community has traditionally wanted not to have large business and that kind of feeling in the community, and has wanted to remain a sort of rural-ish kind of community. And perhaps those thoughts way back then were inappropriate, because what happens right now is that fundamentally everything that's paid for in the district is carried on the backs of the homeowners, and that's very difficult. And it is something that we acknowledge, and that's why we work so hard to try to be very careful about our budget. But it's not a situation of our making. It's a situation of how the community chose to develop.
Did you have a chance to brief the other board members about?
I'm sorry, could you speak a little louder? Thank you.
Did you have a chance to brief the other board members about some of the discussions in the Civic Valley?
Building projects?
Yeah, about the
I
building
gave
projects.
them an email the other day.
Okay.
You want to address that?
Sure.
You have the community.
So see who's behind me, more than usual. So just in full disclosure, I'm Brad Arrington, I'm the Vice President of the Mount Sinai Civic Association. I'll switch hats and just kind of be here in a kind of a reporting capacity. So there is a parcel of land next to King Cullen that's about 35 acres that is currently vacant, has been slotted for development for about 10 years, and there have been some folks trying to build there. That project has not taken off for a number of reasons. Now there's a new developer that has put forth a plan to the town. The current plan is for 88,000 square feet of retail space and 140 units of rental housing, with the idea for that rental housing be specifically designed for and marketed to millennials, so it can be affordable workforce housing, so that we can have places on Long Island and in Mount Sinai specifically, so that our young people can afford to live here and stay here and not leave Long Island. The plan put forth by the developers to the Civic when we met with them was to have about 2/3 of those rental apartments be two-bedroom apartments, and 1/3 being single-bedroom apartments. So that works out to about 85 two-bedroom apartments. There was concern in the Civic about the impact on the school district, of how many families will be living there, how many children would be brought into the district. And at our behest, the developer conducted a plan, a study on how many students they feel based on their marketing efforts, would enter the school district. And they came up with about 27 students. The Civic is not in a position to refute those numbers because we don't have expertise in that, but rely on the experts that have been retained by the developer. The Civic recently learned that the developer has amended their planned distribution of two-bedroom and one-bedroom homes, increasing it from 85 to about 106. So it's going from 2/3 to 3/4. We think that doesn't really make sense for the stated objectives of this development, which is to attract millennials and have that type of housing. It's going to be more conducive to having students entering the school district. So the Civic's position at this point is to request that that mix be moved more closer to 50-50, or perhaps even lower, to reduce the number of two-bedroom units. We hope that that will achieve the dual goals of having workforce housing and having a minimal impact on our school district and therefore our budgeting. The total tax impact projected from this development is about $750,000 annually, with 80% of that going to the school district. So at that 27 student estimate, that would be about $134,000 net positive to the school district at current rates of taxation. So the hope is that at the end of the day, this will be a positive for our school district. There is also a community benefit portion that is grandfathered in from prior development efforts, which is between $1.1 and $1.2 million, which can be earmarked for various community projects. It can be for the Wedge Park, it can be for the harbor, it can be for community beautification, it can be partly for the school district. So that, how that those funds are distributed and what projects they go to is not defined at this point and will be worked out at a later date. This community benefit is, as I mentioned, is grandfathered because the state changed the laws so that developers can no longer be asked to provide a community benefit. Instead, they pay into a fund to purchase pine-bearing credits. But as long as none of the numbers on that benefit change, the developer has the option to provide it. And that's something we're encouraging the developer to do, and they've stated that they will do. If you guys have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them.
So who's deciding how that 1.1 million is divided?
It's the Civic is probably going to have a large hand in that because we interface with the developer and will help guide them into where those projects can go. I think the town board would probably have some influence on where this can go, at least provide some suggestions as well. The school board, if you're interested, if there's specific projects you might recommend, the Civic would like to work with you on that as well.
We're very interested.
I'm not saying I'm going to give you everything. It's not our money to give.
I understand.
But we can certainly make some recommendations based on input from our members as well.
Two things, Brad, if I could just offer a comment so that we're all on the same page. If I just do some simple math and divide our student population into our budget, approximately it costs $17,000 per student. When you multiply that out, it's going to be closer to $500,000 for those students. I don't know how, if you would use their, what I think is a fictitious number of 27 students, if you were simply to use their calculation of 27 students, there isn't a net benefit, there's a net loss based on $750,000. This is just an example of where the school district will be carrying the burden, though the municipality, the county, does not take us into account. And the numbers don't lie. $17,000 per student. If the household has one student, it's a two-bedroom, unless you got in trouble and you were banished to the other bedroom because you got in trouble in the house. I think someone taking a two-bedroom apartment is most likely going to have children, more than one, maybe. I think it's just a comment that 27 students is going to cost us a lot more, and we want to have a tax base.
We discussed that same issue at length with the developer. We prepared them and said, when you come before the Civic and present your plans, be ready to address these questions. And a large part of it was students and the burden to the district. One of the things that they said, and I believe was included in their student estimate, was for students that maybe from that their parents are divorced, mom or dad needs a place to stay in the district, So that student may be living full-time or part-time in an apartment in one of those apartments, but it's not a net add to the district. After speaking with Ed about briefly about the number of divorced parents in the district and how it would be beneficial to have them stay in the district for continuity of their education and their family, I think there is some benefit to having that opportunity within the community for divorced families to live.
It'll be an interesting point where if a parent who has joint custody, and by definition, either parent then could enroll the child, where do you think they're going to enroll the child? They're going to enroll the child in the best possible school district.
Sure.
We're one of them. I've read the material. I was provided with some of the material. I think there's a lot of questions with regards to that. But more importantly, just simply is $17,000 per student. They're going to have a tax burden that is not commensurate necessarily with our community. So as the community, yourself and everyone else, you're subsidizing the developer. So you're going, remember what I said with regards to the assessments? It's a tax base. We divide the tax base by the number of properties. My opinion, you will be subsidizing the developer so they can make a profit on your taxes. Just before one. That's what it's going to come down to.
So I would just like to mention as the last point on this, that this is the very beginning stages of this development. The plans were just submitted to the town last Friday. I haven't had an opportunity to see them myself, but the Civic will remain involved in this, and there's many more steps down the road and opportunities to have input from the community into this project.
Well, I, for one, am most thankful that you are there. I think you are, as we defined earlier, a leader, and thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you.
Just one other.
There's more questions?
Oh, what's that?
There's more?
Yeah. I wasn't here last month.
How many papers did you write?
Talking about
He's very efficient. He's very efficient with his, he uses his entire sheet.
Yeah.
Actually, I was on vacation.
We make note.
I'm sure you missed me. The one other piece of development we've been waiting for a long time is the property next to the ranches on 25A. I don't know if you guys are familiar with how that development and the history of that. When the ranches and the villages were built, it was supposed to be about double the density as it is now, and the Civic Association sued the town for violating their own zoning laws. As a result, that was scaled back, and that property that's currently vacant was set aside to be a revenue-generating property for the school district, specifically. That property was supposed to have been under development before the rest of the project was completed, but that didn't happen. Now that property is zoned and by court order, because of the Civic's lawsuit, has to be developed as a congregate care retirement community, or CCRC. And that's a residential facility where people buy into it. And then if their health care declines, there's another aspect of the facility where they can go and get skilled nursing care. So like a Jefferson Ferry type arrangement. In 2008, there was a developer that was ready to go. The day of the market crash, they were having a groundbreaking ceremony. They lost all their loans. And they've been looking for somebody to build out that facility since then. The most recent development is that there is a for-profit company that has been purchased the site. They've been doing test boring to develop the site, and they are moving ahead to develop that as a for-profit business. The objective is, as a for-profit business, that's better for the school district because it'll be actual taxes paid as opposed to a pilot or some other form of taxation. So what we're looking for in the next 5 to 6 years is hopefully that project will actually take in the requisite number of deposits from interested parties. They can start building and throw some cash back into the school district as was planned 15 to 20 years ago.
You said that to Monday nights sell 75%.
Yeah, the state law says that for this type of facility, before you can break ground, you have to have collected deposits on 75% of the available units, and that's to ensure that they actually have enough cash and interested people to make the project feasible.
Where were you talking about? I heard 8 single homes. What was that?
Yes. On Mount Sonic Quorum Road, across from the golf course, just before Plymouth Avenue, there is a vacant piece of land. It's about 9 acres. That, until recently, was owned by the Diocese of Rockville Center. That was originally going to be the Catholic Church for Mount Sinai. That was never built. Instead, Mount Sinai could go to Infant Jesus or, the other churches around. So the diocese wanted to offload that property. They sold that to a private developer. The zoning there is 1 acre zoning, and as of right, without having to make any changes, they can put 8 single-family homes in there, and that's what is currently slotted to go there.
There's a lot going on in the community.
When is your next meeting, Bernie?
We meet the first Monday of every month at 8 o'clock at the park.
Thank you for
Thank you so
bringing the
much.
meeting to us
Yeah.
tonight. That was great.
Wait. One of the things that has always concerned me, and this is not your fault, but I want to share with you my concern, is that when one listens to the town of Brookhaven hearings on these projects, the supervisor always says, and have you been in contact with the Civic Association? And do you have their approval for this project, et cetera, et cetera? And if the builder says, well, no, well, you've got to go and talk to the Civic Association. He never says you got to go and talk to the school board or anybody else. It's the Civic Association that seems to be the nexus for the information from the community. So we hope that we can maybe be partners in this kind of thing because of the fact that we provide a very large service here, and which, yes, you pay for, but we'd like to be able to be considered or to be part of the process. So.
Yeah, and that's, as Vice President of the Civic and being a Civic member for 13 years, that's one of the reasons I come to the board meeting, because I want to know what's going on with the school district, what the district needs, and the impact, so that when the Civic is looking at the broader community and how to plan and what's right for the community, that we have that perspective in mind. And Bob, relative to what you said earlier about the number of 55 and older developments, the Civic is on record as we will not support any more 55 and older developments. We're currently at about 20% of all households are that type, and we think that's not sustainable for a good community balance to maintain the type of community people say that they want.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Brad. Thank you. Okay, what's up?
Good evening. My name is Renee Massari. I spoke last month, and Mr. Brosdell just mentioned about the interest of bringing 5th grade back to the elementary school. I appreciate once again the time to talk, and I appreciate last month Mr. Brosdell as well as some other board members being so receptive to the idea. I know that with the opening of school, it probably hasn't really been looked into too much, and I hope that you don't mind, but my husband and I took a quick tour the other day of the building to see exactly how many classrooms we were even looking at, to see if it was even possible to continue this conversation. And we quickly counted 40 full-size classrooms. I'm not counting like the little classrooms that I believe are used for speech or some other services that I'm not sure what for. That's 40 full-size classrooms, not including any of the specials, the computer lab, the music, the art classes. I did not include those at all. According to your website, which I believe is current, where you list all of your current classes, you have 32 sections running. That's all K4 and your 2 self-contained classes, as a total of 32. So I'm surprised when you say so quickly that we don't have the space for it.
So quickly, we asked about it, what available space we have.
And I could see
Immediately the next day.
the answer being maybe 1 empty classroom. I believe I saw more than that though. But maybe those other 6 classrooms aren't being used, who knows for what. I know last month when we did briefly discuss it, it was spoken about moving district office in the middle school or a different location. I'm hoping that it's not just like a no, we only have 1 classroom, because like I just said, I don't think that that's correct.
I can speak to the principal. Maureen and I looked into it actually, but I can ask him to explain the usage of each classroom.
Yeah, all right, I appreciate it.
And I'm not going to give you a quick note. I do that with full day K.
I'm sorry?
Did I say full day K no right away?
No, but then we did say no, and then we said yes.
Look at this vantage point. Rather than going to sort of the 5th grade in the middle school, I could walk next door.
Yeah.
Every teacher pretty much.
Yeah.
I'd love to have them, and they're babies still, so
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic to that.
Good.
Not trying to-
At the open school night, I just wanted to mention that I was highly impressed by Mr. Catlin and the direction that he's trying to bring the school with differentiated instruction and, the different reading levels, and it made me even more excited to try to keep my current 4th grader in that building, as well as all of his peers and all of his peers behind him. It's just not age appropriate academically, socially. The expectations of what's expected of 9 and 10-year-olds at a middle school, it's just not a good foundation.
He agrees.
So-
He too would like to see the 5th grade back in the elementary school. We had that discussion, but I will ask him. Maybe he's also great, on top of being great in so many things, that maybe he's maximizing space. But
Yeah,
I
I mean,
will have
any
that
space
discussion.
in a school building is going to be used if it's there, but maybe we could just look into exactly what it's being used for and be a little bit creative.
Mike and I went to see him the next day, not for that, but we brought it up and said, just by the by, there are some interest right now in potentially taking our 5th grades and bringing them back to the elementary school. So I said, just keep your eye out, look, see what, you think might be possible. Maybe, obviously not this year, but maybe, in a year or 2, just based on our demographics and what's going on. So.
In 1 year. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Hart. I currently have 3 children going through Mount Sinai School District. I'm here due to a concern over some of the hygiene issues that are occurring in the school district, specifically the elementary school. It has come to my knowledge, not only from my children's explanations, but also from seeing by being a part of the PTO and volunteering in the schools and being at lunchtime, that children are going out to recess, playing, on all the playground equipment, also sharing toys, sharing germs. As we all know, elementary school kids tend to carry more germs and are not the best at keeping their hands clean. And then they're being directed directly into the cafeteria and eating their lunch without any encouraging to wash their hands or even being given a wipe. So I'm sure many of you know, being in contact with the schools and also with the school nurses, especially at the elementary school level, what an epidemic it is every year with sickness causing many of our students to be out of class. Also, we get notes sent home often regarding strep being rampant throughout the school district. Also, the stomach virus, kids being in school, being sent home sick. So I just wanted to possibly see if there are any other talks among the board or other parents who are concerned about, what we're doing to encourage the importance of hand washing and cleanliness amongst our students, especially before they're sitting down to eat a meal. I mean, I'm sure all of us as adults encourage all of our families and our children to do so. So I just want to know why we're not doing this, especially at the elementary school level where students maybe aren't doing it on their own and do need a little bit of encouragement from an adult.
Maybe there's no uniform policy, but again, tomorrow morning I can certainly have that discussion with Mr. Catlin. But I've been in rooms, particularly kindergarten, where wipes are used all the time and they wipe the area. But you've been in there certainly with the PTO and watching what's going on. And I'm my 4th year here, and I have not heard that yet. But it's certainly, I believe you, because you're actively involved in the elementary school. So, conversation with the principal he's lucky in the sense he's starting new with new policies, that I can't see why he can't recommend that.
I mean, I do understand the logistics. Sometimes I've heard from teachers that it's absolutely impossible to have your students go back to their classroom or use a bathroom to wash their hands, but there are other things that we could implement in the lunchroom, such as sinks that could be up against the walls. I know hand sanitizer is not even something that can be talked about due to alcohol, and honestly, it's not even the best way to spread this disease and germs. Hand washing is a proven way to do that, and it's used, obviously, you all know, in hospitals. It's the #1 method to fight against the spread of disease. So I was just wondering if maybe this was something we could talk about as a community, especially at the elementary school level, where they're, instead of eating their lunch first even, they're all coming in from recess and then eating their lunch. So
I know hand washing from my own classroom experience does take usually at least 5 minutes, and and my school is a little different scenario because we don't have a cafeteria, so they're in my classroom. I can wash all their hands before they eat anything, so it's easy. But I know the logistics of that many kids at the same time coming in would definitely be hard. That would take the whole lunch period just for most of them to wash.
well, what if
But
there
maybe
were
wipes.
multiple sinks set up at the edge, at the sides of the cafeteria, like, basically like what you would use in a laundry room or something, like one of the, portable sinks with soap
So they
and...
could do more than one at once, I'm sure.
Just a thought, and hopefully something we can revisit to talk about how to, have more students showing up daily for attendance, because you would know better than I, but do we get any incentives from the state for attendance being higher, or are there studies that are showing trends in our students being out sick? Again, this is something that I would have to, I guess, get from the school district, this type of
I do use wipes
information.
though, for quick, when I don't have a lot of time, I at least give them a wipe.
Yes, and I believe wipes are put on the back to school list for parents to provide, but I believe those are mostly used in the classroom, as Mr. Brodsdale said, whether it's before a snack or before a class birthday. I do see teachers passing out wipes, but this is not done at lunch.
Right, and I agree.
Have you gone on the website and read the procedure under the nurse's office for the elementary school regarding peanut allergies?
Do you mean in terms
On
of
the
tables?
website, when you go on the website and you go down the left-hand side to the different categories, you can find the school nurses.
Mhm.
And you can go to the elementary school nurse's office, and they have adopted it's a procedure, they call it, for handling peanut allergies and other kinds of ingested allergy in the building. And from what I have heard anyway, and I follow it fairly closely because since it was the school nurse, I go visit the school nurses. They have had what I would say to be good success with the procedure. The teachers know that if there's a child in their classroom that has any one of these ingested allergies, they are required to make sure that nothing is passed out in the classroom that has anything that would be of danger to those children. And I have seen actually letters go home to a whole class that, we want you to understand that we have a child in this class who has XYZ, and they don't name the child, and therefore, snacks that you send into school to be distributed to the class for a party or something like this have to be severely restricted. Or in some cases, they don't even allow the cupcake thing for a birthday party is gone because they don't want to take any chances. Because sometimes people don't pay attention to the labels very carefully. But it is on the website, and you can read that. And have you spoken to the...
I'm more concerned with just the fact that at lunchtime, that students are coming right from the playgrounds into their lunch area and eating their lunch without any form of hand washing. I don't know the policies for like students with allergies. That's something completely different.
I think sometimes, Sandra, what may be referenced is when there is an allergy issue, there's a little bit more encouragement about washing hands because
Okay.
kids will eat something and then have it upon them and have to do that. I can tell you, I mean, this really is not a matter that isn't easily solved in the sense that you mentioned the portable sinks, things like that. When, as a Boy Scout leader, we go out into the woods, we're hundreds of miles from civilization in some places, and we set up 3 basins. There's a soapy water basin, a rinsey water basin, and we teach them right up front how to, regardless of the temperature, there may be to change the plumbing and add sinks and all that sort of stuff, but to begin the process of making it easy. And really what the time frame is the time frame is getting the children to run through the stations quickly. That the more stations you have, the better, and we may want to examine what portable stations, because what you're really asking is to teach good hygiene
Yes.
going forward.
Yes, and also...
Everything you go to, if you wash your hands, every sign you see when winter comes and flu is wash your hands all the time, and this could be part of a protocol that we could look into as to how would you do that within the confines of the time frame we have, because you can't come in and out of the bathroom. Can you imagine that festival? Coming in and out. But how would we do that temporarily? And how would we do that going forward to solve it well? I don't know why we don't, we solve it in my office with the gel containers that are all over the place. But you can't bring them in, that's not something you can use. But I think it would be something we could look into in the future.
Absolutely.
And see, to teach them. This is a teaching opportunity.
Well, maybe also, why do we do the recess first? I don't know where that came about. I know from growing up, we would always eat our lunch, then go and play recess. So I don't know where that switch occurred.
Have you brought this up to Elizabeth Hine or Mr. Catlin yet?
No. This
See
is my
something,
first.
say something, that's a good
I
expression.
can if you'd like me to.
You know what, I'll say it for you, between Renee's request and yours, I'm sure Mr. Catlin's going to look into it. Now, don't forget, he's taking over for old habits and old policies. I don't know what existed before. He's been on the job 2 weeks. There's a lot to do, but this is certainly an important one. I talked to my son about it when he's at another place as well, and fortunately, his nana lives with us, so she's the general hand wash, and it works pretty well. So it's a very easy thing for me. A longer conversation between you and Renee with Mr. Catlin tomorrow, and don't be afraid to approach them and say, listen, I'm just wondering. And you ask the question, what about hand washing on hands? I noticed they're not doing it. But tonight in my email, hand washing and 5th grade room space.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
For bringing it up to us, thank you. So some hands, come on, Mike, please, if you wouldn't mind.
It was just in regards to what she said. We were just going to ask her why recess is first as opposed to lunch, because the whole hand thing would be,
She's just talking about these things.
Good handling.
the hand thing would be easier to handle if they ate lunch first and then went to recess.
Right.
Here's a strange thing, and this is not a cop-out. I'm not trying to say something fast like Renee accused me of. This is, Linda and I are amazed at the letters we get and guidance from the state, what you can't use in the building. And it's pretty amazing. So that's another conversation too. What cleaners and hand cleaners can we use? For a while, all those disinfectant and sanitizers were fine in schools, and suddenly they weren't fine in schools. So the conversation first, then what do we have in stock? What possibly could we order to accommodate that? Because we know sickness and absenteeism certainly affects the student's progress. Certainly. No doubt about it. Same with the teacher's absenteeism, by the way.
Just to may add a little on hand washing. I think it's, when your children come home from school, I firmly believe that the first stop should be the sink. Because even if they were careful in school and did diligently occasionally wash their hands or use handy wipes or whatever, just traveling on the bus is enough to pick up all kinds of things. So hand washing, the first thing they get home, is really very important, because you don't want them bringing something home to your family. And I know it's a pain, and my daughters used to say, "Oh, you're gonna make us wash our hands." Yes, you gotta wash your hands, because I don't want the bus dirt in my house. But it's just a suggestion.
Thank you, Lynn. Are there any other questions?
Going once?
No.
I'll make a
All right,
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Thank you, Bob. Second? Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, everyone.
Favor? Thanks for
Civic
coming.
Association,
Thank you, everyone, for coming out.
Renee.
See you next month.